Hello, this is New Wave of British Heavy Metal.com. Today is the 30th of October 2020, and here I'd like to revisit a post I put up on the website back on the 25th of May 2019, which was looking at the album This Time by Rock Goddess. Before we get into that, the usual favour, if I may, and that's to ask if you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel. That would be most appreciated and a big help. But Rock Goddess, of course, were around way back in the original New Wave of British Heavy Metal days, around the end of the 70s, early 80s. And This Time was released in 2019, and what was the band's first album for many, many years. And of course, Rock Goddess, put together by the Turner sisters, Jodie and Julie, towards the end of the 1970s. And they were so young back then, they were still at school, in fact. And they became a trio with bass player Tracy Lamb joining in. And off they went. You know, the obvious comparison from back then is Girls' School, who were a bit more, well, it reminds me I should put something up about Girls' School, shouldn't I? But anyway, Girls' School were a bit more punky, I guess you could say, style-wise, where Rock Goddess were, and indeed still are on This Time, much more traditional new wave of British heavy metal. And back in those early Nawabum days, it did look more than promising for Rock Goddess. But one of the drawbacks was the youth of the Turner sisters, being so young and still at school, which made things a little bit difficult, particularly getting around and getting gigs and whatnot. But it didn't put them off, and they cracked on and made more than a reasonable fist of it back then. They bagged a contract with a major label, and a debut album came out in 1982, which was most promising. And they even got a second album and touring slots and support slots with the likes of Y&T, Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, and contemporaries such as that. All looking good. But a third album came out, which was a bit low key, and things just didn't work out for them back then, and they kind of faded away. But not for good, and that's good that they didn't fade away for good. You still with me? And they put the band back together. Probably, I think it would probably been around about 2014 or there around, and did a few gigs and recorded a new album, which is what we've got. Well, then it was a new album in 2019. This Time, and it's really cracking stuff. A little bit short, perhaps, on running time for albums these days. It comes in at around about 35 minutes, but they don't muck about, and it's 35 quality minutes, squeezing in 9 songs, none of which disappoint. It's all good stuff. Nice big chunky riffs, tasty bass lines, and some really adept drumming as well. It's really enjoyable stuff. Are You Ready shoots out the traps as fast as a greyhound, really fast paced in your face stuff. Obsession is a bit sleazy and a bit dark. Call Into Space is a bit of what I might call that an abridged epic, really fun. Flying to You has a nice melody and a hook amongst all the riffs that are going on, as does the title cut This Time. My Turn keeps up the power up, and then we've got the closer Drive Me Away, which is a sort of a power ballad. So there's some variety on here as well. But what it does show us is Rock Goddess still have the chops and are keen enough to put out, and good enough to put out an album as enjoyable as this after 30 odd years in the wilderness. And of course, you just can't keep a good new wave of British heavy metal era band down, can you? More evidence of that here. Check it out. I would encourage you to do so. I think it's a cracking album. As always, there's a link to the album in the description underneath the video that'll take you to the album on Amazon if you'd like to get a copy. And there's also a link back to the blog post if you'd like to read that. So in summary, Rock Goddess, not lost a step over the years. Cracking new wave of British heavy metal style stuff. Check it out. And please, as always, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel, that would be a big help as well. So thanks as always for listening, and take care.